think my purpose, I think that's something I've struggled with my whole life, and that's probably what led me down the addiction road and all that stuff, was never knowing what that is. Today, I think I have a very profound understanding. My purpose is to use my experience to help other people.
Connect with us on the Emotion Wellness Podcast for a transformative journey of human connection. Witness personal stories, improve your mental health education, and acquire valuable resources for optimizing your well-being. Delve into the raw and courageous narratives of individuals who have thrived through adversity, gained clarity amongst the ashes, and emerged with an unshakable mindset. Available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And visit emotionwellness.com for more information.
So my name's Jason Turner, and this is the Emotion Wellness Podcast. Today we're doing something a little different. We have Mr. Frank Parisi riding shotgun. So thanks for being here, my friend.
Love it.
And the man of the hour is Mr. Shawn Livingston, and he is with I Am Redemption. I'm super stoked. You and I met not too long ago, basically for the first time. We had an intro a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, I was in a very different place, and grateful that I'm where I'm at today. So I'm super excited to get to ask you some questions and learn more about who you are and what you're up to. And getting to do that with Mr. Parisi is going to be a blast, I believe. So
Yeah, always.
Let's get it.
This
Appreciate
is a
it.
good room of men right here.
Right? Yes, it is. I agree. Appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. When I think about what you're up to, your energy when I see you in person, the moments that we've shared, what's your purpose? What's your driving? And it might be a heavy question to lead out the gate, but I'm really just curious, like, why do you do what you do?
I think my purpose, I think that's something I've struggled with my whole life, and that's probably what led me down the addiction road and all that stuff, was never knowing what that is. Today, I think I have a very profound understanding. My purpose is to use my experience to help other people. I did not know a world existed where I could kind of take all the things that I've been through, or the journey through addiction, military, trauma, mental health, you name it, and ever use that to help people.
Yeah.
I felt so empty and so embarrassed with everything that I had been through, and so ashamed of my story at one point. And then as my journey went, I started realizing that it affects people and has positive effects, and they've learned from my lessons and stuff like that. And so I've just always felt like in life I've just been led without any direction, and then now all of a sudden I just have this direction, and so good things keep happening, and I just keep trying to put good energy out in the world and help people, and the blessings keep coming, so I'm gonna stick with it.
In my understanding, your main platform for that is your podcast? Is that
Podcast, speaking, yeah. We do the I Am Redemption podcast, and so I've been blessed for my story to be able to get out there with the documentary film years ago, and so I felt the therapeutic benefit of that, of being able to, much like I'm sure Frank or even you've experienced, knowing anybody that suffers with mental health or recovery stuff, when you figure that out, that you can help people, it's changing.
It's interesting because I have both my personal experience as a person in recovery, right? That you learn, at least I did. I mean, I was a total fuck up.
Yeah.
Like military, the military politely asked me to leave.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done it much more aggressively. And when I found the rooms of recovery and I got sober through 12 steps, I had no idea that I would enjoy helping other people find light out of darkness. Like I'd see the value intellectually, like, yeah, that sounds like a cool thing. But the actual experience of it was, man, I love this. And I dove full steam ahead. Then I went and got professional education, and I was sort of torn, and I think took a stance of like, well, the education is where it's at. You know what I mean? Like I'm like elevating myself above others with that position. And today I sit with a bunch of information, a lot of professional experience, letters behind my name, and I'm really settled on the fact that it's human to human is the most powerful healer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think there's definitely a place for traditional therapy, holistic therapy, professional. I'm not saying they don't need to be in the room and they don't have value.
Yeah.
But man, my experience is like, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but both from a working with others, but also receiving. The most I've ever received is from people who have had similar experiences that were able to share how they got through.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, 100%.
Dude, I was at my was at my doctor yesterday, my doctor of all people, and you see. It's one thing, I think, when I first started going down the avenues of mental health and trying to get sober and stuff like that, the military, first they start shoving you in different programs to help you out. And then you sit down with these people and try to talk, and, you'll have doctors try to tell you what's wrong with you and all that stuff. And none of that, I never identified with any of that. But I'm sitting there with my doctor yesterday, and he and I got to talking, and then all of a sudden, I find out he's in recovery too. And then we start chopping it up. And then he's telling me how he got sober and how I got sober. And now instantly that connection is so much more different now than going in to just see my doctor. Now it's like I'm going in to see my brother just from one conversation.
Yeah.
And so that right there, like, you know what I mean? That's the real shit when it comes to this recovery stuff, or getting your life in order, is getting around good men and women, having those good people around you and having those personal connections, as opposed to someone just sitting there telling you what's wrong with you or why they think it is the way it is.
What do you think that binding element is? Like, is it the shared trauma? Is it? I'm really curious. I'm not a loaded question about.
I definitely think that has something to do with it, for sure.
Experience,
Yeah, but we could share like a milkshake and still not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Shared
Like,
trauma
Yeah, that's what I mean,
experience.
it's
It's like that, like for me, like I come from hard, so it's like I love people that have had hard lives but overcome. It's that commonality. Now, after the heart transplant, it's like I find that even with people facing medical challenges, that connection, Same with addiction, same with recovery.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember when I went to prison for a time, and I remember when I got out, I had it in my head for some reason. Everybody knew I went to prison. Like it was tattooed on my forehead or something. Nobody had any idea, but I thought they all knew. And so I think for me, for addiction-wise, it was very similar. I feel like, everybody knows this and that, and then all of a sudden you meet somebody that knows even a degree of what your struggle was, where it's like, all right, somebody gets it.
Yeah.
Somebody understands. Because you talk to a normal person, oh, just quit. Just stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
if you really loved her.
yeah.
Right?
I agree with you. I was just thinking while both of you were talking. You said it, not in these words, but I felt seen for the first time. I felt like I was on a different planet, even amongst my family. Like I could never articulate how I felt, what was going on in my head, even aside from like being a drunk, right? Like I just couldn't share what was really happening. I felt either shameful or too exposed. And when I met the man who carried the message to me, it was definitely not his interpretation of the 12 steps that attracted me. It was he knew me. I didn't have to sit in front of him and say, this is who I am. He like told me who I was. In fact, when I started to talk, he would tell me I was full of shit and like, and then go where I was headed. I was already trying to manipulate him, and he would say, I already know this door is where you're trying to go. And as much as you'd think that would piss somebody off, it really provided me with an opportunity to feel safe.
Dude, you just took it a step further and hit the nail on the head for me, because that's what I needed. You could take regular people and I'll talk, you know what I mean? I could talk my way in and out of that conversation all day, but I needed somebody that could call me on my bullshit, somebody that could see through all that. And it wasn't until I got somebody who suffers from the same thing that I suffered from that could immediately identify with that.
Yeah.
And it was a veteran counselor who did it too. And he was the one dude you don't want to get. Everybody knew. You don't want to get him if you go into the VA, because he's going to call you on your shit. And of course, I got him. And he remains a great friend till this day. He saved me in a lot of ways.
I remember having the bracelet on at the hospital VA. I was active duty and got TDY to the hospital. And I remember the counselor was like, do you know where you are? And I'm like, yeah, fucking Tucson, Arizona VA, bro. He's like, you're in a licensed psychiatric facility. And I remember it hit me. Like, I didn't share it with him at the time, but I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, I'm just here to quit drinking. Like, licensed psychiatric, like, I'm in a psych ward. And he really put it so similar, right, to that guy you were just talking about. Like, and I was on my phone before the group, and I was like basically wasting everybody's time. And the dude came up and just took my phone out of my hands, and I was like watching him. And I was like, part of me is like, how come I'm not punching this guy in the face? And he's like, yeah, he's gonna have to call you back in 6 weeks. And he hung up the phone and gave my phone to the nurse. And that dude became really close. Like he shared, like he was into building like model. I forget his name because it was over 20 years ago. But he was into building model replicas of Civil War reenactments.
Oh,
and I
cool.
remember he brought one in and put it. It was in his office, and he showed me it, and it was one of the coolest things I'd seen. And it wasn't. I think he was doing therapy with me, but it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It was like he was, showing me a side of his personal life. But I had the very same experience. It was like the people who got in front of me and wouldn't let me snowball them.
Yeah.
I seem to want to follow.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
How long ago did you pick up the pieces and start redeeming yourself?
A little over 7 years ago. I just finally hit that like rock bottom. I tell everybody my rock bottom was sitting in a prison cell. My mother stopped picking up the phone. She wouldn't collect calls anymore. And so that was the moment where I was like, geez, like my own mother won't answer the phone at this point. Like I know something needs to change. I will say, I ended up in Austin, and I ended up at the only facility that I could get into. It was a state-funded facility. I had already maxed out all my time at the VA, and so I just remember going into that facility, and I had done 8 months in the VA, so I had 8 months sobriety time under my belt, and I go up into this state-funded place in Austin, and I just remember looking in the mirror, and I hated who I saw. I'd let myself go, fat, had a gut out to here, just felt like crap, looked like crap, and it was through that moment, and then that's when I kind of started pushing myself to get into running. I found out about a little running group that met in downtown Austin and was like, I'm going to go try to lose a little bit of weight. Little did I know the effects, the profound effects running would have on me or my story or my life or the levels it would take me. I had no idea, but I can remember through all my time at the VA, and now that I was in treatment and I had started getting in the program, and a lot of people had rallied around me. They knew I was looking at a whole bunch of prison time. So I had caught my third and my fourth felonies for possession of heroin. They were going to charge me as habitual criminal. And so at this point when I'm in treatment, I was in treatment because it was a foregone conclusion. I'm going away for 20 years. To me, that was a life sentence. So I just remember asking the lawyer, it was like, all right, if this is the case, can I at least try to get clean so I don't got a kick when I go away, and maybe I can get on speaking terms with my family again? And he's like, yeah, we can get that for you. So I go into treatment and I do all these things. And throughout that time, for whatever reason, I kept a folder. And every worksheet I did, every note that I took, test that I took, everything, meetings that I went to, I'd get slips signed, and this was all on my own. I'm not an organized person, no clue why I did this, but I kept this folder for whatever reason, and so it comes time for my sentencing hearing that we're getting ready to schedule, and I take the folder to my lawyer, and I just remember he opens up the folder and his jaw dropped, and he was like, Shawn, like, you've really given me something to be able to work with here. Whatever you're doing, I just need you to keep doing it. And so that was like the one defining moment in my story where it was like I got this little glimpse of hope, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt that. And so that right there is where I'd say I started picking up the pieces, because there was no stopping me after that. I was all in on treatment, all in on running, all in on anything positive I can get my hands on. And so I went back, and this whole running thing it transformed my experience of treatment. Before, I want to be the tough guy sitting in the back of the room, mean mugging everybody. You know what I mean? I'm sitting here dealing with anxiety, depression, PTSD, panic disorder, agoraphobia, all these things that they tell me is wrong with me. And I start running, and that stuff just kind of starts melting away. And now all of a sudden I'm sitting up in the front of the room in treatment, and now instead of talking back, I'm providing good quality answers in groups. And now instead of me mugging people, I'm shaking hands, and it just transformed everything. And so it was just like, there's something to this, man. And I just head down, keep doing it, and we'll see what happens.
That's amazing.
It's pretty good.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny that you were doing the folder thing and didn't. It's like, I know myself, right? And I don't know you as well as I know this guy, but if you're anything like him, me and him, like, we think a lot alike. And it's like, that's the shit I would do to get a result. Like, oh, if I do this, I'll look good. And it was all about the presentation and not about the inner stuff. It was always about saving face as opposed to like saving my soul, right? And we end up doing this thing. You don't know why you're called to it. And my interpretation of that is whatever image of God you have in your life. But to me, that was like the universe, the creator, God pushing that feeling to do that for yourself. That God knows you're going to need this down the road. And there were a lot of moments like that in my life. So that's a really cool piece of the story right there. That I just showed up and had no idea it was going to even impact my court case, but here we go.
Right. Yeah, exactly like you're saying. Any other time I would have done something like that in my life, it would have been a well thought out, like, all right, this is going to get me. But I have no idea what made me keep that folder, but that ended up being my saving grace somehow. And then I talk with these guys, you know, so many guys now that are currently in treatment and facing problems with the law and, you know, having to go away. And then they go in there and they're like, well, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this. I'm like, yo, forget all that. Go in there and be honest. Be honest with what you're doing. Like, keep a folder, like, do all these things. And then they want to concoct this whole story. Like, this judge sits there all day and listens to people lie to them. If you think they take one look at you and they can't tell you're lying, you're out of your mind. They know. But
people always ask me, what should I say? What should I say? I'm always like, the truth.
yeah.
But it eludes most people.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing to lead with is not the truth.
Yeah.
It's, I got to come up with some other. And the amount of stories in whether it be substance use or mental health, I just call it all mental health, right? But in mental health recovery, that have absolute mind-bending, jaw-dropping, super surprise endings, all happen due to someone being authentic. We were talking about authenticity this morning, and telling the truth.
Yep.
When all common sense would say, lie your ass off and don't acknowledge that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure. What got you into the ultra marathon running?
A woman's belief in me when I didn't believe in myself. So I started running, and I remember I showed up to this run, and I mean, I grew up an athlete, and I show up and there's like 30 men and women there, and I show up and I'm like, they don't got nothing for me. Like, this is going to be easy. Bro, I was dead last that day in a 2-mile run, lungs on fire, still smoking a pack of Newports a day, and was just like, it was just hell. But I got done and just felt a sense of accomplishment. And again, it was so long since I'd ever felt that. And so I kept going back. I started seeing all the positive effects this running stuff was having on me, and so I kept going back, and 2 miles turned into 3 miles, 3 miles turned into 4 miles. I put the cigarettes down, and then I hear about this woman named Penny, and she runs ultra marathons and trail races. And I didn't know that existed. I remember being in high school and hearing people ran cross country, and I'm like, you what? You just run? Like, I didn't know that was a thing. And so to think about ultra running or people running 100 miles or anything, I'm like, get out of here. But so I hear about she's doing it, and I had been road running here for a little while, and there was an extreme aspect of that sounded cool to me, and so I was like, all right, let me try that. And so I had met her and started begging her, and I was like, you know, will you please train me up for a race? Please train me up for a race. And she's like, I got you. So she's teaching me how to run trails, and like, you got to learn how to be able to like run full speed down the side of a mountain with loose rocks and roots and not kill yourself. And so she's teaching me all that. And so she trained me up, and I go run a 10K. And it was at Pedernales Falls here in Texas. And I go out and I run 10K, and I get done, and I'm feeling myself. I'm like, ooh, look at me. Just did a 10K. Dope fiend out here. Look at me. And I remember she looked at me, and she was so unimpressed, and she was just like, you could do more. And I was like, and it messed with me. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you can run farther. And I was like, all right, well, then I'll run farther. And so I was like pissed off about it. And so my next race, I did a 30K. And then I got done, and she did the same thing to me again. And so then I did a 50K. And then within my first year, I did a 100K out in Bandera, Texas. And that was like a major awakening moment for me, because that right there was what showed me, like, you know, 12 steps is absolutely my foundation, you know, recovery, all that stuff. But I think from so many years of sitting in rooms and treatment centers and meetings and all that, and just always, hi, I'm Shawn, I'm an addict. Hi, I'm Shawn, I'm an alcoholic. And then you start playing with it, and you're like, hi, I'm Shawn, I'm a dope fiend. Hi, I'm this. And it becomes funny. It's like you're trying to make your buddies laugh and all that. But I think I said that to myself so much that it became what I thought was my identity. But I remember running 100K and getting done and being like, wait a minute, like, dope fiends don't go run 100K in Bandera, Texas. I'm capable of far more than I've been giving myself credit for. And so that was the moment where it was like, man, if I can run 62 miles, I'll run. Let's just keep going. It just taught me so much. Dude, if it wasn't for that, I don't know, man. I can't even think about my story without it, because I don't know who I would be sitting here today had I not been around the right people that could push me in a way I didn't know I needed to be pushed, and then to take off running with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, how did you get hooked up with, get the I Am Redemption movie out on Amazon?
So I was on early in my journey. My story kind of started getting out there a little bit amongst the running world. You know, a lot of the Austin runners and people in the running community knew me as this ultra runner and trail race runner and all that. And I did an interview with Austin Marathon. And so when I did an interview with Austin Marathon, that's kind of what originally put my story out there for the first time. And so I remember they had asked me a question, and it was, to this day, the most important question I've ever been asked. And they asked me if I could go back and talk to my younger self, what would I choose to change? What would I tell him to change? And so I thought about it like long and hard, and my mind starts racing. And, you know, I came to the conclusion, I'm very sorry for anybody that got hurt along the way, especially my mother and my sister and my family. But in all honesty, I wouldn't change a thing, because now I understand I had to go through every single thing that I've been through to be who I am today, and I wouldn't change that for anybody. And so that interview ended up coming out, and then the next thing I know, I got a phone call from a gentleman named Andrew Chabet saying he was a director, asking me if I'd be willing to be part of something on a bigger scale. And I thought it was one of my buddies joking around. Like, I thought it was a prank call. People like us don't get phone calls like that. And so I started talking to him, and it just so happens I was training for this 100-mile race that went from Alabama to Georgia called the Pinhoti 100. And so he started pitching me the idea, and I was like, man, if you think my story, because at this point I didn't know. I still didn't know my story could help people. And so he was like, I was like, if you think it'll help people, like, let's do it. And so they went down and filmed the race, and then it was all from there.
Wow. Awesome.
Crazy.
It's like the story you had about your story was like holding you back.
Yes.
It's wild.
Hands down.
Yeah. And so when you get validation and evidence to the contrary, and you begin to change the inner story, now you end up as your identity is I am redemption. I'm a dope fiend.
Yeah.
And how fucking cool is that?
It's
The language.
Just you saying that just gave me goosebumps.
Even the language. We need to, we cast spells. Our tongue's a wand. To call ourselves addicts
Yeah.
at this point in our life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Person in long-term recovery. I'm more than,
Yes.
we're more than just that. I am an addict.
Right.
No.
Bro,
I'm a million other things.
The reason I love you guys so much is because there's such a, don't want to get all controversial, but there's such a cookie cutter way of thinking about this recovery shit.
Yeah.
And you guys are willing to look outside of that and think about, you know, what are the other things that are helping people? What are the other ways we can look at that? But like, nobody wants to talk about science, but tell me what it does to you when you sit there day after day telling yourself something.
I'm an addict.
Calling yourself.
And I haven't picked up a drug in 14 years.
It doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Here's the thing. I don't think it's controversial. I think in its nature, it's not. But by the interpretation and the experience of whoever's on the receiving end of the communication, then it becomes controversial. And there's an indoctrination, and there is group norms, and there is a message. And it's usually presented to individuals at their lowest point when they have, like, to be told, no, we don't want you around anymore, right? And then to hear, like, welcome home, keep coming back, right? Early on, that was really powerful, right? And early on, I was like, okay, I'm an alcoholic. But guess what? Being an alcoholic gets me the welcome home and the I'm going to take it. And if it never went past that, it would have been okay, right? But for me, what ended up happening was my experience was there was a deeper calling for me. And some people hear that and they go, oh, you think you're better than. And that's your story, right? Like, we're mirrors for people, whether we want to be or not, right? And so if people can really just hear that this is my experience, it's your experience, it's Frank's, and we just happen to get along. I'm not here today looking in that camera, having a conversation with you with any motivation to change anyone else. That's not my goal, to inspire. Hopefully somebody hears this and goes, oh, you know what? I've been on the fence, but it's interesting. In recovery circles, they'll be like, you want to find people to challenge yourself. Don't go people who will co-sign your shit. But people co-sign that shit all the time without even trying, right? It's like, oh, you have to identify as this. If I go to a meeting and I say, I'm just my name, they'll ask you again, who are you? Who are you? Right? So we're co-signing that, but we're also getting a message to get outside the box and or challenge ourselves and don't co-sign people's stuff that's going to get them in trouble.
Right.
For me, I recognized, and we do a process here called the Enlifted method, And Mark England would love what you just said about the casting spells and that kind of stuff. And it's so true. And I was that guy, man. Like I was much larger than I am right now. And I was very angry and I was very righteous. And I would go to meetings to pick on the bullies. Like I'm going to be the guy that tells that guy in the back with 30 years who's using his time to bully people, I'm going to show you what's up. And I'm going to not do it physically, but I'm going to do it with knowledge of the book and challenge you, right? And I would do let me see what happens if I drop this bomb in a meeting. I'm recovered. Let's see where we go here.
Right.
Like I'm this, I'm that. About a year ago, after doing a lot of work on words and how I use language in my life, and you brought it up today, you were like, I started to tell myself I'm something different. I woke up one morning and it just didn't work for me anymore. Doesn't mean that I don't understand my relationship to alcohol. I can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. That's just not my thing.
Yep.
But I don't go anywhere and say, I'm Jason, I'm emotion. I'm Jason, I'm a business owner. I'm Jason, I'm a CrossFitter. Well, sometimes I say I'm a CrossFitter because that's the rule of CrossFit. You have to tell everybody. But like we don't walk into rooms and lead with like, I'm Frank, I'm a heart survivor. Right? I'm Frank Parisi, and it's part of my story. This is my experience with this aspect of my life. This is my experience with this aspect of my life. You have this title that I think encompasses all of it, which is beautiful, which is I Am Redemption. It's like, I'm Shawn, I'm Redemption. That's a cool, because that goes in every area. It doesn't say I'm just this person in recovery. I'm just this person who works on mental health. It encompasses all of who you are. I think it's a beautiful conversation, and I was hesitant to have it early on because I was starting a business in a field that I felt like it could be potentially damaging being new because people would misinterpret it. And I don't have that fear anymore. Like the fear is selfish in a way because there's people out there who need to hear that you can be something else and still maintain a connection to what you have to do in order to continue to grow.
Yep. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
And I used to say that a lot. Like it is, and it can be controversial. Like I'm sure the three of us at this table could make it that way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that is not my goal whatsoever. No. You know? I feel like it was holding me back.
Yeah.
And it worked for a really long time. You know,
I feel like we're all trying to get to the mountaintop, but everyone's path is different in life. You know, and if you really want to get down to it, like, I'm a big book guy. I love the 12 steps. But in the third step, you know, if we turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand them, that means that I'm no longer in charge of anything. So how the fuck do I know what you need?
Well, and it's not
or what you need to say.
And it's not the care of the 12 steps.
You know what I mean?
It's the care of God, right? As we understand.
Yeah. You know, and everyone's having their own journey. So I want to ask you another question.
Go ahead.
But go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No,
I want to get back to your race, dude. I want to get back to your race because your race is very powerful and the experience that you had doing that race. Yeah. And I kind of would like you to elaborate a little bit on it.
Can you let him say what he was going to say?
Yes, say what you were going to say, dude. Go ahead. But I want to hear that then.
It's a long. I was going to tell. We were talking about God. I was going to tell you guys a story, but it's kind of lengthy.
Go ahead.
So we
got time and then answer that question. Yeah.
So you had originally asked like what my purpose was and all that, and then I know one of my big problems, especially in addiction, was I wasn't a big God guy. Not that I didn't believe in a God, I just didn't know what to believe. And so I grew up, and I grow up learning the Bible and Jesus and all that stuff, and then I don't know, I get older. I don't know if I listen to too much Rogan. I start questioning everything, but I didn't know what to believe, and it was because I couldn't put God in this box or whatever. So I didn't know what to believe, and so I didn't ever give it much thought. And so this story that I want to tell you guys, this is what let me know without a shadow of a doubt God is very real in my life. There's something bigger than me looking out for me, and it leads right into why my purpose is my purpose. And so as I was in the process of getting kicked out of the military, I had failed my second year analysis, and so they were going to send me to treatment. So they sent me to a 30-day facility in Austin, and full transparency, I was not concerned with getting sober. I wanted to get out of trouble. I was trying to salvage my military career, doing anything I could do to make sure that happened. So they shipped me here to this place, and so I go in there, and my MO, my entire addiction, my entire life is always hang around the funny guys. We're going to talk shit. We're going to pass time. That's all we're going to do. Didn't matter if it was sports, military, school, work, anything. I hang around the funny guys. And so I go up into this treatment center and immediately meet a guy who's 5-6 years younger than me. He's in there cutting up, talking shit. And I'm like, oh, Cool. Rehab homie right here. So now we're boys and we're in there kicking it and we're talking during groups and talking to girls and, you know, doing everything you shouldn't do in treatment. And about halfway through treatment, I break the cardinal rule and I start dating one of the girls in the treatment center. I would get out and realize why that's a thing. I end up in the most toxic 2-year relationship known to man. Largely both of our faults. We were both very sick. So I start getting in trouble with the law. And so I pick up my first 2 possession cases for heroin, and now I got to go away and do some time. So I get sentenced to 2 years. So they send me away to 2 years, but I figure it's cool. I got my girl. She's going to hold me down. She'll write me letters, put money on my books. All my homies, they're going to hold me down. I go away. How many letters do you think I got while I was gone?
None.
Girl didn't put no money on my books, not a phone call, not an answer, anything. And so I do all that time alone. No homeboys, nothing. And so then I get out and I make the logical drug addict decision because I'm lonely and I just got out of prison, so I got to see what the girl's up to, right? So I hit her up and I start looking her up on Facebook. Well, come to find out, she's now with my young homeboy from the treatment center. They're together. And so me being me at the time, I'm competitive, and so I start texting her. And so she starts sneaking around behind his back to come see me. And then he finds out about me, so he's texting me, and we're calling, and we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to fight, and it's going to be this whole thing. Well, I had gotten tired of all the talk one night, and he wouldn't come meet me, and so I found out where he lived, and he lived in these very nice gated community, and so I go there, and I hop the fence, and I find his door, and I go up, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm trying to get him to come outside, but he won't come out. And now she's inside, and she had borderline. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with that. Never a dull moment.
Once or twice.
Yeah, never a dull moment. So in all honesty, she loved the fact that there were 2 guys ready to fight over her. So she's in there kind of egging it on a little bit. And for whatever reason, he wouldn't come out. And so she ends up packing her stuff up, and she's going to leave and come with me now. And now I feel like I just won the grand prize. And so I have this elaborate plan that we're going to move to Temple, Texas. And because there's a VA in Temple, Texas, that's where we're going to get sober. Very delusional. No idea what I was thinking. So we pack up the stuff. We move to Temple. I find the first little crackhead motel I could find. And she starts unpacking her stuff. And now all of a sudden out comes a laptop, out comes an iPad, out comes a cell phone, out comes a PlayStation, all this electronic stuff that I knew she didn't have the money for. And now, for whatever reason, in my entire addiction, one thing I never got down with was stealing. I always just felt like it was bad karma, would get me caught up. I just never did it. And so I never had any problem with this dude other than the girl. And now I figured because I got the girl back, we're good. And so I hit him up, and I'm like, hey, man, I got your stuff. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to pawn it. You're more than welcome to come get it. So for whatever reason, he thought that I was setting him up. And so he sent his mother to come pick up the stuff off me. Now, why you would send your mother to come pick up stuff that you think you're being set up for, I don't know, but that's what he did. So that night, very nice woman shows up. I give her the stuff back. That's that, right? So now fast forward 3 years later, I end up in Austin, Texas. I'm in a state-funded treatment center. I'm actually there trying to get sober. I discover running. Running starts having this very profound effect on my life and everything like that. And so then I meet that woman named Penny. And so she's teaching me how to run trail races. And one day we're out on the trail, and I'm sitting there, and I'm telling her my whole story. How I was kicked out of the military and had dated this girl, and I'm giving her the whole thing. And at one point I said the girl's name, and the girl has a very, very unique name as a girl. It's not one you hear every day. And as soon as I said her name, Penny's running next to me, and she just kind of stops in her tracks, and she looks over at me, and she goes, Shawn, do you know my son? And I was like, well, who's your son? Her son was my young homeboy from the treatment center.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
She was the mother that 3 years before had come up and picked that stuff up off me.
Badass, yeah.
Right?
Wow.
If that's not God working in my life, I don't know what is. What is the astronomical chances? Take a city like Austin, right?
I know.
It's growing every day. Yeah. We get this huge influx of people from California. I move away for 3 years and come back. What is the chances I get plugged in with the one person that would literally introduce me to an avenue that would save my life, dude? I could have robbed him. He could have robbed me. Somebody could have got hurt. She could have got hurt. The mother could have got hurt. That's the one honest thing I did in my entire addiction that I still to this day could not tell you why. I have no idea why I went out of my way to do that. But that woman remains one of my best friends till this day. She was the vice president for cybersecurity for Visa.
Damn.
Now, in what spectrum of the universe does a 4-time felon that's been kicked out of the military, heroin junkie, ever become personal best friends with the fucking vice president of cybersecurity for Visa? Her team took down the Vegas shooter. Her team took down all the people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. If anybody out there remembers Backpage, her team, I was in the car while her team took down Backpage. And so she had a whole team of hackers. And the one common thread amongst all these stories is all these people that went to Vegas and these people with January 6th and all that, they always use Visa. So that's how they track these people down and find them and shut this shit down. But
Wow.
dude, if that's not God working in my life, man, I don't know what is. And if it wasn't for her, that documentary would have never happened. Those races would have never happened. I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys today. And, you know, for a long time, I would tell that story, and I'd always credit the Penny. And it took me a couple years to be able to step back and understand, like, oh, no, that was God putting Penny in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For sure. And so that's why I don't care what anybody got to say now. Like, I know he's in my life.
You met her in Temple, Texas, no?
Who? The girl?
No, yeah.
No, Austin.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were going there to
Yeah.
get their life together.
Yeah.
That's dope.
That was good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What
a story, bro.
was all right.
Wow. I want to know about I want the audience to hear your race.
The race?
The race.
Well, they got to see that's a spoiler alert. We could do it, though. Documentary's been out for years. It's
The
okay.
race is telling to watch the movie. Dude.
I know.
We could do it. No, it was, so, I know the part you want me to tell it?
I would, yeah.
right.
I mean, because the audience needs
I
to
trust
hear
Frank.
you.
I trust Frank. Let's go with
The
Frank.
audience needs to hear you, Shawn. Okay?
So-
I know you, brother,
Man.
but the audience needs to hear you.
All right, so be
brother.
quiet so he can talk.
Yeah.
I wondered how this go. I wondered how this was going to go when you said Frank was going to get on.
I've been quiet. I've been
Yeah,
quiet.
I'm his hammer.
I've been very
All right.
quiet.
You're the one guy that knows how to get him.
He's like,
So, man, so I go to Alabama to run this race, and I got this. There's a camera crew following me, and the toughest part about my story and everything was me living in Texas, and my family lives in Ohio, and so. As I'm getting sober, dude, we've all done this so many times. My family's heard it all before. They've heard all the lip service, the words. It's going to be different this time. And so this last time, dude, I was in so much trouble and all that. Like I didn't even waste my words on them. I knew I was in Texas, and I was just head down doing what I could do. So I get involved with the running stuff, and in this really cool way, running was able to give me something to like show proof of the work I had been doing. They could see that I was changed. They could see that I was different. They know, oh, he's going to run 100K in Bend, Texas. Like, he must not be shooting dope right now. And so one of the things I did was like, when I got sober was I cleaned my social media. I took down all the pictures and posts of me saying crazy stuff or looking messed up. And so I would only post positive stuff to like my Facebook at the time. So it'd be a picture of me at a race or a picture of, the run I did, something like that. But I never knew. I didn't know if my family was following along. They're not big on social media and all that. And so I didn't know. I didn't know if they knew I was up to running or not. And so they're filming this, they're doing this film, and I left that morning, and I can remember the one thing, the only person in my family that texted me was my grandmother. And she said, just so you know, late at night, if you're lonely or you're tired, just know I'll be following along on my iPad. It's about to make me cry right now. And so that was just something that I kept in my head the whole time I'm doing this race. And so I start this race, and I'm about halfway through, like 50, 60 miles, and that's really where the race starts. I was so trained up and so ready. It was about 60 miles is when your body starts breaking down on you a little bit. And so the way I try to describe it to people is this race was very much, for me, physical, mental, spiritual. That first 60 miles was all physical. It was just grit, keep pushing. And then it gets to the point where, like, all right, your body's pretty much done right now. And so now it's just brain power, willpower, keeping you going. And so as you start getting into 60 miles, 70 miles, now you're into the nighttime, it's cold, it's wet, you're lonely, there's hours and hour gaps where you're in between aid stations where you're just by yourself. And so there's so many times throughout this race where every step you take, you can rationalize quitting. Because it's like, I just ran 70 miles. I'll quit right now. Who's going to turn their nose up at me? What, I only ran 70 miles? Like, most people won't do that cumulative in their entire life. And so every step I'm taking is like, man, I could quit now. I could quit now. Maybe I should. My back hurts, like, every step. And so, man, I go through the night, and I can remember the next morning, the sun starts coming up, and that's when everything like started getting real. That was probably the longest night of my life. And so the sun starts coming up, and it like starts warming up your body, and it's like, oh man, like I could do this. I'm going to be able to finish this. And it starts getting really real. And so 70 miles, 80 miles, and I know at mile 90 is the last aid station. And so I hit this last aid station, and that's where it was like, oh my God, like I'm about to finish this. Like all these emotions start coming rushing back in, and I'm sitting there thinking about, it was like a year and a half ago, I was still shooting dope. I was sitting in a prison cell. I'm about to finish a 100-mile race. There's a camera crew here. Like it's the most surreal thing that ever happened in my life. And so I leave the last aid station, and I run out, and it's about another 3 miles, and you finally hit the road. And when you finally hit the road, you're on the last home stretch. And so the race is going to end at a high school football stadium, and it's a 7-mile straight stretch to get to that stadium. And so I come off the trail, and there's the van's waiting for me, the camera crew's there, and they're filming me, and I come off, and I'm already starting to get emotional, like, holy shit, like I can't believe this. I'm so excited, and I'm sitting there thinking about being in prison and all these things as I run in these last 7 miles, and I'm wondering, does my mom even know? Does she know what I'm doing right now? Does my sister, does she even know? Because a big portion of the film is me rebuilding the relationship with my mother, and in particular my sister, because she was the hardest one to get back in my corner. So I'm running in this last 7 miles, and I can remember sitting there thinking of my grandma following along on her iPad and everything, and I'm getting closer and closer to the stadium, and I start being able to hear the crowd in the stadium. I start hearing cowbells going off and air horns, and I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, and so I come into this stadium, and there were people that had run the race with me, they'd went with me from Austin. And so as soon as I came into the stadium, over hundreds of people, I could hear them screaming for me. I could hear their voices. And so I'm like sitting here getting choked up, but I know there's cameras at the end, and it was like, all right, I got to hold it together. Got to hold it together. Got to be a tough guy. And so you come onto the track, and I go around the quarter turn, and I hit the straightaway. And as soon as you hit the straightaway, you see the finish line, and I see all the people cleared out. And everything is rushing through my head. And as I'm running this last straightaway, I pick up my head, and all I see is my mom's blonde hair and my sister standing next to her, dude, and I just lose it. It's the most surreal, special moment in my entire absolute life. To have that moment for me and my family, to be able to be caught in a movie or on a film, is just mind-boggling to me. The most special day that I could even...
That's about us.
I love it.
Even describe.
That's about us.
I love it.
I was like, please tell me this happened. Like, I'm thinking his mom was there.
Yeah.
Like, please tell me that's how it is.
Yeah.
Dude, then the funny thing was, is the film's coming out. It was set to come out, and then quarantine happens. COVID hits. And so it was set to be released on all the film festivals, and we were going to travel with it and do all this stuff. And so we had to wait for all that to subside, and then we were doing the first live in-person event showing of the film. It was 350 people downtown Austin in a place called Fair Market. And it was the first, it had been shown a bunch of places, but it was the first event we had done that was kind of like on us. Like it was on the director to be able to sell the tickets. And so I remember walking into this, it's basically a huge airplane hangar, and you see this enormous, basically an IMAX screen with 2 movie screens next to it and 350 chairs. And I'm like, there's no way 350 people are going to show up to this. Like, it's going to be me and 6 other people in here. And we do mic check and all that, and we get ready for the evening. And I remember taking a walk out. It was about 45 minutes before it was supposed to start, and it was just a sea of people waiting to get in. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to happen. Wow. And so we watched the film, and I don't remember any of it. I just remember sitting there thinking, like, how surreal is this that there's this many people watching my story on this screen right now? It's so crazy. And so we go up and we go on stage, and it's me, the director, and the MC. And the first question they asked me was, Shawn, how's everything with your family today? And I was like, it's exactly how it should be. Me and my sister, we text and we talk a little bit of shit in the morning on the way to the gym. You know, I speak to my mother all the time. We're what a family should be. And then the MC goes, Shawn, he goes, I've never lied to you, but today I did withhold the truth. We have a special surprise for you. And I look over, and all of a sudden, my mom's blonde hair comes walking up on stage, dude, and just all over again. I just lose it completely.
Wow.
But, dude, it was such a powerful moment. And I love talking to people in treatment or the people that I go speak to, because that day I was able to sit on a stage. And I remember looking over at my mom at one point as I was speaking to the crowd, and I just remember her looking at me, and it was the first time, and as long as I can remember, that she was proud of me.
That feels so good.
And I knew it just from a look. And I just want anybody who's struggled or been through the stuff that we have, I just want them to feel that one time. Because that right there is enough for me to know that I'm on the right track and ain't nothing worth going back to that other spot for.
Very cool. Fucking A.
That's badass. We just had I had a family member drop off
I didn't hear that. That was awesome.
some gear this morning for their family member who's, you know, receiving services. And I hope they listen to this podcast, because the question was, you know, you forget sometimes thinking I think I've been doing this long enough, I should know, but sometimes I just forget until it's right in front of me. Like, I witness miracles a lot. Like, when I really sit down and think about it, I'm like, holy shit, I'm really blessed. When I get past my story and the victimization and all my little needs and wants and desires, right? Like, there's a lot of people. I mean, there's 3 of them at this table. There's 4. Casey's over there. You know what I mean? Like, when I look, there's Jamie. I know so many miracle stories, but there's also so many tragedies, and there's also so much loss and so much pain, right? And she said to me today, she said, because people don't know. And she was really honest and vulnerable. And she said, do you ever see this situation? Do you ever see a couple get back together? I said, oh yeah, all the time. Mm-hmm. And she was like, maybe not when you want it, maybe not how it's going to look in your brain. I've seen every scenario known to man where it's like the person leaves for a year, that doesn't work right now, but you end up having to hold a strong boundary, and they go run amok for a while, and then they figure it out, and then they come back.
Right.
So for the most part, at the core of people, when we're suffering from addiction, part of the suffering that we keep adding to ourselves is we're so inundated by the chemical relationship to our brain and our system, we can't show up for people the way we want to, and then we feel really shameful about that.
Yeah.
And then when we make any progress in that area, it's like a superpower. It's like, oh, I can do this, and I want to do this. So I'm really sitting here thinking, man, that story would, like, you know, that's a powerful testament.
Yes, it is. Thank you. If I can help them in any way, if they need a phone call or something.
Yeah, or maybe one of these days, if you're just hanging out, I'll have you
Absolutely.
come by and plunge and
100%.
spend some time, and it'd be awesome. So
100%.
that's badass, dude.
Great story.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Good question.
Good work, dude. Trying to push me out of my job or what?
Sorry, dude. I just have a little info on the guys. I was digging a little bit. I feel like you dug on me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. Yeah, no, it's good. When Frank was here, I made him read his letter to his wife. He was trying to avoid it.
That's why I remember you saying that.
Oh, forget
I
it.
read that shit. So.
Yeah.
What are you working on currently? Like, what's your?
Just the speaking and podcast stuff right now. I don't know, man. I tell people all the time, this is all uncharted territory for me. I'm not a businessman or anything like that. I just want to keep using my experience to help to help people. But the podcast is the main focus. I've been lucky enough, it's gotten some pretty good traction, and, you know what I mean, seems to be helping people. So I'm just going to keep doing it. We've gotten some really cool guests and all that. And then just speaking anytime I get the opportunity. Man, the speaking thing it's crazy, and I'm curious how you feel about it, because I don't know if it was AA that kind of trained me up for it, because I feel like that's where I started cutting my teeth on being able to public speak.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, you know, being willing to always tell my story and all that. But I've never really had that fear of public speaking. But I know it's morphed over the years, because it starts off, you kind of go in there, you tell your 1 hour AA story. And then it becomes, it's like, now I have a talk with a message and different stories that I can sub in and all that. But the speaking thing, for me, I started realizing, like, when I can get up here and talk in front of all these people, and I watch people laugh and I watch people cry, and it's like, wait a minute, like, if you're able to speak and provoke emotion out of people, not everybody can do that. I'm not saying I'm the greatest at it, but I watch it happen. And so it's like, all right, like, I've been a coach, I've been a recovery coach, I've been a sponsor, I've worked with people one-on-one, and then I've watched as I've been able to step on a stage with hundreds of people and talk and have large groups of people come up to me afterwards, and it's like, man, like, I may have the ability to affect people on a large, you know what I mean, on a quote-unquote large scale, and so whether that's speaking or podcasting, I'm just going to keep doing it and seeing how I can
keep serving.
Seeing how I can help people.
What if you took out the may?
Out of the what?
Take the may out of that sentence.
May.
You said I may have. Just take the may out.
Oh, okay, yeah. I have.
You have what?
I don't even remember what I said.
Have the ability to impact large numbers of people.
Oh, I have the ability to affect large numbers.
You are.
Yeah.
And you have it. Like,
Right. You're
here's the
doing
thing, I'm taking a risk with you right now, and I'm not.
Please do. Let's do it.
But I relate to it because there's this thing, and I feel like I was trained early on. It was like if you don't take the last cookie out of the cookie jar, and like it was growing up, like it was real concerning how the family looked based on my behavior and like that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I feel like I do make this story up that I have to make myself smaller in order to not come across a certain way and like not look like I'm arrogant or egotistical and I will tell you, my experience with you today is that you moved me, like without a doubt. You're a good storyteller. You have a powerful message. Like it's not a matter of I may have the ability. It's I am helping people change. I am inspiring people. And so I would encourage you to start to look at what we call soft talk. It's the probablys, kinda, sortas, the likes, and you start removing that from your language just on a subconscious level. If you do nothing else with words, but just remove soft talk.
You couldn't be more spot on. Please keep going. You could not be more spot on right now. Bro,
Yeah, we speak like this.
You're the only person to ever bring that to me, and you've just hit the nail on the head. I'm pretty sure because we can see self. But did I cut you off? There was I had an experience early in recovery, early in the running world, where I got around somebody who had a very powerful story. This story could impact millions of people all over the world. But I watched the way they moved, and I watched them only use this story for self-benefit. They only wanted to be around if there were cameras, and they wanted all the shine, and they wanted, and I watched how they operate, and it was always this perfect example of me of everything I didn't want to be, because that's exactly what I was in addiction. And so when I got sober, I came to this far other end of the spectrum where it's like oddly enough that I get up and speak and all that stuff, but I don't ever want the focus on me. And I just always try to keep it modest and humble and all that stuff. But that's exactly like we were saying, because it almost comes across as like doubt instead of like a matter of fact, because I do know that I have that. I know that I have the ability to affect people, and I know I can speak and all that, but I do speak like that subconsciously. And that's
one thing I've realized through everything in life is that it's our movie. It's your fucking movie, dude. We're just actors in your movie.
And dude, I told you that he taught me something, because he's a great self-promoter. I don't know if it's because he's from New York or what, but
it's because it's my movie. I don't really care.
Bro, we went walking into
life is my movie.
We went and walking into Soho House, and we were in contact with probably 4 or 5 people before we ever sat down at the table. By the time we got to that table, all 5 of those people knew Frank's story, that he had a book. They knew everything like that. When I'll go in there, and I would never say any of that, but just like the tap conference y'all were at, like I'm down there in a button-up and stuff. That's not me. And then I see you guys coming in, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And so the next day I was down there with my shit on, like, no, this is who I am. Like, why am I buttoning up trying to be something else?
Yeah.
So, dude, that's having that conviction. I was trying to describe somebody to you, and I was like, there's a lot of some of the stuff that would come out of Frank's mouth, if it came out of anybody else's mouth, you'd be like, oh, they're full of shit. Like, that'll never happen or anything like that. I was like, when Frank says something to you, he looks at you with an intensity in your eyes. There's no question it's going to happen.
He believes it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're inundated with messaging that we have to deconstruct. And it's not just about being small. It's, how many times have I been given a compliment? Don't let this go to your head. motherfucker, if you knew what goes on in my head, it's not going to do any damage. It's going to lift me up.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Like,
Listen,
if
man.
you knew what story I got playing,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about me getting a big head. Let's just get me to a normal level of. But I've really adopted this relationship with myself where, and I was thinking about you wanted to bring the belt in, right? And the belt that we have here says "bad motherfucker," and it's like, dude, you're a force of nature, and you're authentic about it. It's the car salesman, and not to probably car salesmen don't listen to this, but it's the guy who's trying to sell you something that they don't believe in. It's the reason I built this program, not just for the clients, but I wanted staff. I've been at programs that I knew I had to work at, and I knew I wouldn't send a fucking friend to it. You know what I mean? I wanted to build an environment and create a place that people were proud to represent, like legitimately proud.
Agreed.
And when you have that for yourself, there's nothing about your presentation. You and him are very similar in the sense of you're so authentic with your message. You're so passionate about what you want to do, and it's real. And it's why you use the softer language, because that's what tells me it's real. Because you're not trying to come. A lot of people sit down at this table and try to have an image. It's not an image. It's your lifestyle. It's your brand. It's who you are. I would challenge you and offer you what's worked for me, and I don't have it down to the level that I want. But I would challenge you and ask you to really consider just owning that 100% and see what happens. There's nothing about your presentation to me, at least in my experience, and I don't know, who am I, right? But like, there's nothing about your presentation that says, oh, he's full of himself. Or when I hear your story and the way you told that about your mom, like your emotion, your connection to it, you're not trying to sell anything. You're just trying to be you. Right. And that's where the power is, So, and I think that's what he does really well. Yeah. Like and I feel like the intensity of his experience is so fresh. It's a year away, it's a year out. Those God moments, and you think about, I talk a lot about my experience with Frank, because I don't know if it's just me or anyone else, but dude, his fucking heart was taken out of his, like, how does that even happen?
Right.
Like, we can do that in medicine?
And start it back up
like,
again.
Holy shit.
Start it back up again.
For a moment, I don't know how they do it, but I'm guessing at one moment you didn't have a heart.
I don't have a heart.
You in your chest, and then they put one in, right?
And then got it going again is the craziest part to me.
Like the intensity of that situation, man, what it does to your psyche to survive that. And for you, it would be tragic for you to come out of there and have your head down slightly and not feel like you should take spot in the world. It would be tragic.
You know how you deal with it in life? When anything happens, it's radical acceptance. Complete radical acceptance. And it's no different than the way I coach the 7-year-old flag football team. I don't care if we made a good play or a bad play. It's 110% effort on every play. And I don't care if we made the play or we didn't. It's what's next. Everything. And when human beings can move through experiences to what's next and not live in the shit that happened, that's what slows us down.
Yeah.
So it's what's fucking next. And when I was in that hospital, that was my mindset. It was already embracing the comeback. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The last thing I'll say for you, and I think when I ask you about what's next, like, what I'm really thinking about, and I'll just say it is, what's the next moment that you had on that stage with your mom, right? Because I think if you're not thinking in that type of term, you're doing a whole bunch of people a disservice.
Right. Somebody asked me, I think you were the one that asked me that. I think you, at one time, Frank asked me what my 5-year plan was and my 10-year plan. And all I know for me, obviously I want to keep speaking more places, continue to grow the podcast and see what happens. But all I know is, and it's just very true for me, and I hate quoting the big book, but I always try to be the director of my own play. I want my hands on the wheel. And every time I put my hands on the wheel, that shit wrecks. So all I know is for the past 7 years, my hand's been off the wheel. I just try to put good energy out in the world, and good things keep happening. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. My loose goals are to continue speaking any chance I get and grow the podcast, help people. That's the main goal. But as far as like, this is what I'm doing here and this, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it'd be a dangerous thing if I did, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you seem a lot smarter than me, so if you can explain it in a different way that I should, then
I feel like it
I'd
would be
consider it.
a good thing if you picked a goal that was so big and scary that it terrified the fuck out of you, that you thought you couldn't even accomplish, but you're going to work towards anyway. And I'm not asking you to do it on the show. I'm just saying, like, dude, this right here was that for me. And now I'm like, what's next, you know? And
I do that in the quiet of my head.
Get a board.
And
it's right in my gym.
And I would say 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years.
Okay.
That's what do I want in the next 2 weeks? What do I want in the next 2 months? What do I want in the next 5 years is a long time out. And I don't even really look at it from a time standpoint. I look at it from I'll be honest, I want to change the mental health game. Like, that's a crazy gig. I want to change the game. I have no idea how to accomplish that. I know it's so big that God has to be a part of it, and I can't be the director because I don't even know where to start.
Right.
All I know is something needs to change, and if I continue to do what I'm doing, I've seen all the right people show up, and so, you know, I just getting this experience with you today. There's something that happens in the studio. We tend to have this energy here, and really, my focus, my most recent this last year has been really listening when people are talking and really trying to see them, and I'm not blowing smoke, dude. Like, if I'm pretty legitimately coming at you right now that you're a force, and we're at war. There's a battle going on, and we need people doing good. And I love your messaging around, I just want to put my head down and keep doing the next right thing. And I'm also like, yeah, man, and pick up a fucking battle axe and tell me who you're gonna, you know, what you're gonna go after, you know. Right. And that's like, that's what you're inspiring me to want to do, and what I want to hear from you, because I see so much. It's almost like all this explosive energy, and I'm like, God, where is it going to go? Like, right. So you have me excited about what you're going to do next, even though you don't even know, because I'm curious if you're capable of what you've already done in 7 years, from dope fiend to redemption, and recognizing inside. I think you're smarter than I am, because I didn't have a fucking clue. I had to go straight 10 years of nothing but programming, and then the last 10 years I've been stepping away. But it took me almost 18 years of being in recovery to realize that I am a force of nature, and that there's a way I do shit, and it helps a lot of people. And I don't know, I can't take credit for it in the sense of like I did anything. I just know like this is what happens when I'm an agent of change for people, and the people in my life today. It's not always true. The way that I used to wreck lives, I improve them today. Yeah. Like it's an equal. Yep. And someone told me a long time ago, as far on the down that you go on one scale, the people who go way down, when they get it, man, it's the opposite on the other end. And I don't make any excuses about that, and I don't feel sorry or feel bad about saying it. Like, everyone in my life levels up. Yeah. And I feel grateful that I get to be that. That's something the universe has been flowing into me. I don't create that. I just do it. Right. And so that's been really helpful for me, because I have a lot of self-doubt and a lot of, I don't want to sound too, I just don't care. I wear shorts to business meetings. Do you? Yeah, 100%. Right. And you're so pure and like powerful and passionate about your experience. Like, man, what would happen if that was unleashed? Right. Thank you. Yeah. I really mean that. I'm not just saying that. No, I think I needed to hear that. Thank you. True authenticity, brother. Yeah. No doubt. Like Soho has. Right. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Well, man, I can't thank you enough, dude, for spending some time with us. Dude, thank you. It was really, it's been interesting to get to see a little bit more about who you are and have this experience with you. And it was really cool to have you. I don't know if I was going to like sharing my table, but. I know. Look at this. But I do. His first one, he's on his best behavior. Yeah, I was very quiet. Yeah. Was I good, Casey? All right. So, so I look forward to seeing, we're going to have you back on and hopefully a little bit of time here, and you'll have come back and be able to say, like, this is what I'm working on. Let's do it. Cool. Let's do it. Awesome. Thanks. Awesome, brother. Thanks for coming on. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you for connecting with us on today's episode of the Emotion Podcast, where we discuss all things mental health. Connect every week as we explore incredibly intimate stories of persistence and hope, delve into mental health education, and explore valuable resources. Available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And visit emotionwellness.com for more information.